The roar hit me before I even parked grinders, screaming asphalt, smoking a crew slicing straight into my driveway like they owned it. And there she was. Marla Keaton fuchsia blazer, blazing in the sun, iced macchiato, raised like a gavel as she barked orders at the workers on my land. "Finish the 12-foot extension," she declared. "HOA Keaton Bluffs approved it." My stomach dropped. There is no HOA. But then I saw it fresh cemented fence posts, perfectly aligned, already planted deep inside my property. And the last post was still wet. The next morning, before the sun even cleared the rooftops, Marla Keaton marched onto my driveway like she had a key to it. Her first move. She planted 3 bright orange traffic cones dead center on my gravel, then snapped a picture like she was documenting a crime scene. "Shared access zone," she announced without looking at me. "We'll need this space clear for community flow." Community flow. This was a dead-end street. I stepped out of my garage, trying to process the audacity. Marla moved the cones. "This is my property." She finally turned lips, tight eyes, already judging. Marla behaved like holding a clipboard automatically made her mayor of the block. "One driveway dragging down neighborhood standards affects all of us," she said, her sole motivation delivered like gospel. I almost laughed. Instead, I pointed to my work truck and trailer. "I run my landscaping business from here. I need the space to load equipment every morning." She waved that off like swatting a fly. "Then adjust your routines. A refined community requires cooperation." Refined. She said it while standing on gravel she didn't own. When I dragged her cones back onto her lawn, she followed me step for step, writing something on her clipboard, muttering measurements under her breath, eyeing my driveway like she was planning its funeral. Then she tapped her pen. "Expect formal notices soon," she said. Not a threat. A promise. And for the first time, I realized Marla wasn't improvising. She was executing a plan. The first warning came that same afternoon. I walked outside to grab a tool from my truck and nearly tripped over a fresh chalk line dragged across the width of my driveway. A perfect white stroke. Straight, deliberate. Beside it, a laminated notice flapped under a landscaping stake: "Keaton Bluffs AOA Driveway Compliance Alert." AOA. They weren't even subtle anymore. I tore it off. "Marla, this isn't real." She was already outside, adjusting her sunglasses. "It's a preliminary guideline. The neighborhood asked for structure." "The neighborhood," I said. "Or just you?" She didn't answer. She just took a photo of my truck's license plate. That's when it clicked. This wasn't irritation. This was documentation, her documentation, like she was building a case against me in a court that only existed in her imagination. I needed my driveway clear each morning to load mowers and trimmers for my crew. One blocked route meant a late job and lost income. But instead of understanding that, she scribbled on her clipboard like my business was a safety hazard. By sunset, 3 more chalk lines appeared. Straight, parallel, like she was outlining future construction. 2 days later, the chalk lines became flags. Small neon markers, green, pink, blue, stabbed into my gravel in a perfect grid, each labeled with a tiny number. I found Marla and her husband Trent pacing the strip between our houses with a contractor-grade tape measure snapping back and forth. Trent pointed at my driveway like he was surveying land for a shopping mall. "We're calculating the optimal shared access ratio." "There is no shared access," I said. Marla didn't look up. "According to our preliminary community plan, this portion serves dual functionality." Dual functionality. She said it like she was reading from a manual. She walked over to the boundary marker, planting the end of the tape measure directly into my soil. "Look, even 12 feet of underutilized frontage. It benefits everyone if we treat it as communal." Communal. This was my property. As she clicked her pen, my outdoor camera recorded everything. I didn't set it up for drama. I used it to monitor my equipment overnight. But now it served a new purpose, capturing every delusional inch they tried to steal. When they left, the flags remained, little plastic soldiers staking a claim that didn't belong to them. On Thursday, I stepped outside and froze. A full crew, different from the first, was unloading equipment at the edge of my driveway. A saw roared to life. A roller thumped across the gravel, and then I saw it. They were laying asphalt on my land. Again. "Stop!" I shouted, sprinting across the yard. But they didn't stop. One worker, weary, resigned, gestured at Marla, who stood proudly beside her white Lexus RX iced macchiato in hand, smiling like a woman watching her dream home being built. "Extend it 12 feet, she ordered. "Blend it seamlessly." Seamlessly meaning you couldn't tell where my driveway ended and hers began. When the asphalt settled, she added solar pathway lights along the new edge, hammering them into place one by one with delicate satisfaction. Then came the worst part. Overnight, a privacy fence appeared, dark cedar lattice top, cemented bases jutting diagonally onto my property. The cement was still gray, still curing. She wasn't testing boundaries anymore. She was building on them. I recorded every angle of the fence, every inch of asphalt. I'd seen disputes like this on job sites before, usually between stubborn neighbors, but never anything this brazen. Marla didn't just want control. She wanted territory. By the weekend, Marla escalated again, this time involving the county. 2 sheriff's deputies arrived after she claimed I was blocking a shared driveway. Shared. The lie had become her religion. Deputy Harris stepped up. "Sir, she's reporting access obstruction." I opened my folder, Deed County parcel map, printed GIS, all highlighted in bright yellow. This is my land. Not shared, not communal, not HOA controlled. Marla shoved her own stack of papers forward Trent's handwritten map. Lines wobbly, measurements scribbled like a school project. Deputy Harris raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, is this a professionally done survey?" "It's a contractor-grade measurement," she said, chin lifted. "That's not a survey," he replied. Harris walked the boundary, comparing my map to the real ground. He didn't need long. "Ma'am, everything you built is on his property." Marla stiffened. Well, we're forming an HOA. Standards must be enforced." "There is no HOA," he said. "And even if there were, it wouldn't override county records." She folded her arms like a child denied dessert. But the deputy wasn't done. "Document everything he told me quietly. People who push this far usually don't stop." He was right. The breaking point arrived with a party, Marla's Thursday wine and charcuterie night. I came home and froze. 5 vehicles were lined across the freshly stolen strip. 2 sedans, a crossover, a minivan, and 1 coupe parked half on my gravel, half on my grass. Guests stepped out casually, sipping drinks, laughing, walking across my land like it was a hotel driveway. Marla waved at me from her porch. "Oh, good, you're back. The closer spaces are for family." "For your family?" I said. "On my property." She smiled sweetly. "Shared property?" That was the trigger. Later that night, I found a bright pink envelope taped to my door. HOA Keaton Bluffs, infraction notice, fine, $175 for obstructing community flow. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was insane enough to be inspiring. If Marla wanted to turn my land into her community resource, I'd show her exactly what use of property looked like. The next morning at 7:15, I called my supplier. "Drop 10 yards of mulch," I said. "Right on the paved section. You'll see it." At 1102, a red Peterbilt dump truck backed up to the asphalt and lifted its bed. Marla burst out of her house, screaming, "No, not there, too late." A tidal wave of mulch crashed down, burying the stolen driveway in a mountain of steaming wood chips. Her Lexus was trapped, her empire buried. But this wasn't revenge. This was self-defense landowner edition. By sunrise the next morning, the mulch pile had hardened into a rustic monument, tall, steaming, immovable. But the moment Marla stepped outside, she acted like she'd discovered a crime scene. She stormed toward the pile in her robe, pointing wildly. "Evan, this is illegal. You're obstructing my driveway." "Your driveway," I said. "It's sitting on my land." She stomped her foot, actually stomped, then spun toward her husband. "Trent, say something." Trent adjusted his glasses like he was preparing to deliver a TED Talk. "Evan, we're willing to compromise. Perhaps you move the mulch, and we—" "No," I said. The single word landed harder than the dump truck had. Marla exploded. "You're violating HOA regulations. There is no HOA." Her lips pinched like someone had welded them shut. That's when the gravel truck came rumbling up the street, bigger, louder, meaner than the first. Marla saw it and panicked. "Oh, absolutely not. You will not put that here again." The driver leaned out the window. "Brooks, same spot, same spot." Marla spread her arms like she could block a 10-ton machine. "Stop, I forbid this." The driver shrugged. "Property owner gets final say." The bed lifted. The gravel thundered down, burying the mulch pile and the illegal asphalt beneath a mini mountain range of stone. Marla's scream echoed across the neighborhood, bouncing off houses like a distress signal only dogs and deeply irrational people could understand. And right on cue, someone called the sheriff again. Except this time, it wasn't me. The courthouse was smaller than I expected, just one main hallway and a wood-paneled courtroom that smelled faintly of paper and old carpet. But Marla walked in like she was entering the Supreme Court, clutching a gold sticker-covered binder labeled HOA Keaton Bluffs Official Charter. Her husband carried a second binder titled Boundary Evidence. I recognized the shaky handwriting immediately. My attorney Erica Vaughn kept her expression flat, though the corners of her mouth twitched every time she glanced at Marla's stickers. When the judge entered, he sounded exhausted before the case even began. Case 4162, he announced. Keaton versus Brooks. And Brooks versus Keaton. Marla shot to her feet. Your Honor, before we start, I'd like to address Sit, the judge said. He didn't even look up. Her knees buckled like he'd cast a spell. Erica presented my deed, the county survey GIS printouts, time-stamped photos, video recordings, and a clean, organized timeline. When it was Marla's turn, she pushed Trent forward like a nervous stage mom. Our survey, he said, placing a single sheet on the table. The judge stared. This is drawn in Sharpie. Trent brightened. Contractor-grade Sharpie. The judge pinched the bridge of his nose. Did you hire a licensed surveyor? Silence. Did you obtain permits for construction on land that was not confirmed as yours? More silence. Then the judge asked the bailiff to bring in the paving contractor. The man lumbered in, clearly uncomfortable, clearly honest. Were you paid to pave a driveway extension on the defendant's land? Yes. Did the Keatons tell you they owned that land? Yes. Did you verify anything? No. They waived cash. Marla gasped like betrayal itself had punched her. But the judge wasn't done. Mrs. Keaton issuing notices for an HOA that does not legally exist is fraudulent. Building structures on property not your own is unlawful. And trespassing is not a community improvement. Every sentence crushed another piece of her imaginary empire. The judge closed the folder with finality, the kind that says there is no wiggle room, no second round, no appeal that will resurrect the nonsense he just heard. In this matter, he said, voice sharp as a shovel hitting stone, the court rules in favor of Mr. Brooks. Marla sagged so hard, Trent instinctively reached to steady her. The judge continued, Marla and Trent Keaton will remove all unauthorized constructions from Mr. Brooks's property, including but not limited to the asphalt extension, privacy, fencing, decorative lighting, and landscaping stakes. Her eyes darted wildly. But, Your Honor, he raised one finger. She froze. You will also restore the land to its original condition at your own expense. Trent swallowed audibly. And further, the judge added, you will reimburse Mr. Brooks for his legal fees. Marla made a sound halfway between a sob and a hiccup. The judge's gaze hardened. And lastly, cease issuing any notices or documentation under the name HOA Keaton Bluffs. Any further attempts will result in fines from this court. Silence crashed over the room. Even the gallery neighbors who had quietly come to watch the spectacle held their breath. Case dismissed. As we stepped into the hallway, Marla stood rigid, clutching her binder like a life vest. I paused beside her. She didn't speak. She didn't look at me. She didn't breathe. So I leaned slightly toward her and said quietly, next time, Marla, measure twice before stealing. Her jaw trembled. I walked away. Behind me, her binder slipped from her hands and hit the floor with a soft thud, the sound of an empire collapsing. The sun was dipping low when I turned onto my street, the courthouse still echoing in my head. But the moment I rolled down my window, a different sound replaced it, the rhythmic thud of metal cutting through asphalt. The Keatons paving crew, the same one who'd paved the stolen strip, was now back jackhammers in hand, chipping away at every inch of the illegal extension. Chunks of black asphalt flew into piles, dust rising like smoke from a battlefield. Neighbors stood outside watching. Not hiding behind curtains anymore, actually watching. Mrs. Dawkins clutched her tiny dog like it was popcorn. A few guys down the street pulled out lawn chairs as if they'd been waiting months for this moment. Kids on bikes circled slowly, pretending not to stare, failing miserably. When I stepped out of my truck, someone called, "Good job, Evan." Another added, "Bout time." Someone stood up to them. Nobody cheered loudly, it wasn't that kind of neighborhood, but the quiet approval in their faces felt louder than applause. Near the broken remnants of her once glorious driveway enhancement, Marla Keaton sat hunched on her front steps, elbows on her knees, hands covering her mouth. Her hair, once perfectly styled, hung unevenly, frizzing in the humidity. Her clipboard lay beside her abandoned bent. Trent stood behind her arms, crossed face hollow, watching the jackhammers undo every command they had ever tried to enforce. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like balance finally returning. And the neighborhood breathed. The court order unfolded in real time. The cedar privacy fence Marla bragged about was the first to go, workers pulling off lattice panels, yanking up posts, cemented deep into my soil. The decorative pathway lights she had so proudly hammered into place were tossed into a plastic bin like cheap party decorations. The rose gold stakes, the pastel stones, even the ridiculous Keaton entrance sign, everything came down piece by piece, stripped bare under the workers' silent irritation. No arguments, no negotiations, just compliance forced by law. By dusk, the asphalt trench Marla had welded into existence was nothing but a raw, uneven scar in the gravel. The crew swept debris into their truck, ready to restore the area the next morning, per the judge's order. Marla watched every blow, every shovel, every removal, like someone witnessing the slow teardown of a dream she'd built on sand. She didn't yell, she didn't command, she didn't hand out fake HOA citations. The law had spoken, and the land was being corrected, visually, physically, undeniably. As the last jackhammer fell silent, I walked toward the property line, toward the one item still standing exactly where I'd placed it, the bright blue, contractor-grade porta-potty. It sat there like a bizarre statue marking the entire saga. A symbol, a warning, a punchline. A few neighbors joked quietly as they passed Keaton's throne. "Isn't going anywhere, huh?" "Nope," I said. "Still fully operational." Even in defeat, the porta-potty held its ground, the only object in this war that hadn't been moved, challenged, or illegally modified. Then I saw Marla stand. She hesitated before walking my way, steps small, controlled, as if afraid the wrong movement might shatter whatever was left of her composure. Trent didn't follow her this time. When she stopped a few feet from me, her voice was barely audible. "We're listing the house." I didn't smirk, didn't celebrate, didn't twist the knife. I simply nodded. "If that's what you want." Her eyes darted briefly to the gravel pile, then to the workers packing up tools, then to the porta-potty. Every reminder of every decision she doubled down on. "This neighborhood," she whispered, "isn't what we expected." I almost laughed at the understatement, but I didn't. I let her keep the last shred of dignity she had left. She walked away slowly, shoulders stiff, clipboard left behind on the step like a discarded crown. As evening settled, neighbors returned to their homes with quiet relief. Kids resumed biking, dogs barked again, delivery trucks rolled freely through the street without fear of HOA reprimands that never legally existed. I stood on my restored driveway, gravel crunching under my boots. The breeze finally calm after months of storms I never asked for. The land wasn't perfect yet. The crew would level it tomorrow, but it was mine again, unshared, unclaimed, untouched by imaginary councils. For the first time in months, I felt the weight lift, not dramatically, not in a cinematic rush, but in a steady, grounded way, like the earth itself settling back into place. I looked at the boundary line, the one Marla had tried to redraw with confidence instead of truth, and I realized something simple. Anyone can invent rules. Anyone can print a notice. But real boundaries, the ones worth defending, don't move just because someone bullies them. I turned toward my house as the streetlights flickered on. The war was over, and the ground beneath my feet was finally still.